Hello, everyone, and welcome to this masterclass called No More Diets. This is part 2 to the first intro video that you've already seen. And today I am compiling my best tips and tricks and inner shifts so that you can start, seeing dieting and seeing weight loss and seeing your adrenal fatigue recovery in a whole new light. And one of the first things that needs to happen when we are wanting to change something in our lives, whether it's with our health, with our finances, with our relationships, with our business, or in our work life, or anything really, is that we need to have some kind of a shift in perception, a shift in thinking, something that's called a paradigm shift, to shift from where you see things now into a whole new other state. So today I'm hoping to give you at least one of those where you are leaving this workshop with at least one new thing that you can take with you as a result of that inner shift. Sound good? I hope so. So in video 1, we talked about ending the cycle of the stress, eat, guilt, shame cycle. Now I am reading notes because I must read notes, because otherwise I lose track of what I'm doing and I just go off on different tangents because I get quite passionate and then I lose focus. So I am reading notes today. So if you see me looking down on the video version, that's what's going on. So we talked about how excess weight is often a manifestation of a deeper root issue, and that we must recognize that stress creates more cortisol creates more body fat, and body fat creates more cortisol. So it's this vicious cycle. We need to deal with the stress, whether it's with adrenal issues or you want to lose weight, and they're oftentimes go hand in hand with the hormones, thyroid, adrenal picture, low progesterone, and we add the emotional eating and stress eating and all of that in this whole tangled up ball, and it can be hard to know where to start. But we do need to look at stress. We need to look at our emotional state. How are we seeing the world? Are we acting like we are victims, like everything and everyone around us is causing us to feel stress? Or can we have that shift in thinking, realizing I produce my own stress? The outer world is neutral. As Eckhart Tolle has said, the outer world is neutral. Everything that's going on around us is neutral. We are what makes it what it is. And that is our inner state, our perceptions, the words we choose, the thoughts we choose, the way that we can choose what to focus on. That is within our control 100%. And if you want to start dialing down the stress in your life, it's important to look beneath the hood, instead of saying this person is causing me stress, you're causing me stress, this, that, and the other, to shift that and go, I'm causing my stress. How can I choose a new way to see it? How can I change it? What can I do about it? What's within my power? So we need to get off the crazy train of the stress and the overeating, and then the guilt that often follows with the overeating, the shame of feeling like we can never get it right, that we blew it again, that we have no willpower. We have to let go of that. And understanding that cortisol raises our cravings for junk food, like sugar, fatty foods, the greasy stuff that's not good for you. I'm not all about there's good and bad foods. I'm about what's the best thing that's going to help you feel the best. And sometimes that might be a slice of that gluten-free chocolate cake. Sometimes, but we don't want to live off of that, right? So I'm not about strict rules. I'm not about stupid diet rules that make no sense. And we're going to get into that today about like the confusing and conflicting information that's out there. All right, so today we're talking about tossing the scale. We're going to talk about dropping the good food, bad food mentality. We're going to talk about no more restricting and letting go of perfectionism. And we're going to talk about how you can start focusing on your emotional expansion and your emotional health. Okay? So toss the damn scale. Stop letting the number on the scale dictate how you feel. That's number 1. When I'm working one-to-one with clients who are in this weight loss dieting mess where they're just caught up in it and it's creating a lot of stress in their life and a lot of anxiety and misery, is I get them to toss the scale. So whether that means they donate it, they give it away, they put it in the shed outside of the house, that is the first thing that we do, is we look at how can you just get the scale out of your home. I've had clients where this induced some anxiety for them, just to feel like I'm not going to have control because I'm not going to be able to actually see the number on the scale. For me, I have a scale, but I rarely step on it, once in a while just to see where I'm at. But I know how I feel. I know how my clothes feel. And a lot of times things can change in that just when we start reducing the bloating, improving digestion, getting rid of some of that water weight from, things we're eating, things we're doing, from the stress, from different imbalances, from eating food you're sensitive to, which is all pieces I go into inside of my programming. But these things can happen rather quickly. And so it's not about the scale. The scale doesn't determine your health, because somebody could be what would be considered slim or an optimal weight, but not healthy. And someone with 15 to 20 pounds maybe to shed could be not in all that terrible health, terrible shape. And we need to be working on the internal regardless, and letting go of all of the guilt and shame and the stress and the cyclic nature of it, and the mentality of glomming on to what the experts are saying you should eat and shouldn't eat. So toss the scale. Understanding, as I said, weight can fluctuate daily based on what you're eating, how much you exercise, how much water you drink, water weight, bloating, hormonal shifts, especially for us women, it can really ebb and flow. And so this can keep some of us, when we fixate on this emotional roller coaster of, I need to go on another diet, or, oh, it's up a few pounds because I ate this way, for a few days, or I ate these things. And then the guilt starts to rise up in that. And so that's why we need to kind of pull ourselves away from that energy of continually needing to obsessively check. It comes from anxiety. It's like an obsessive compulsive behavior because it involves checking to keep on top of. It's not going to shift in a couple of days, right? It's not how it works. I mean, sure, you could in a week shed some by starving yourself, maybe, or just living off of celery juice or something, but it's not sustainable. So I'm all about sustainable. So do you hyper focus on the number on the scale? So it's for you to get honest with yourself. Are you so focused on that number, and that determines how you feel that day? It determines how you feel about yourself. And what we focus on expands. So if we're focusing on that and it creates negative emotion, then the negative emotion drives negative behaviors, and on it goes. Measurements are actually more accurate if we're going to talk about, being able to measure your progress, if you want to, is taking measurements. So something that's much more accurate than the BMI, body mass index, which is it used to be like the mainstay in the fitness field. And then it started to change to the waist to hip ratio, because you want your hips to be wider than your waistline, because the waistline is a determining factor in like heart disease and diabetes and different things. So for health's sake, yeah, you want to keep that as low as possible. But with adrenal and hormone issues, that's where it will all sit. And it's hard to lose without dealing with those root underlying imbalances. So the BMI is not as accurate. In fact, I would just say forget the whole thing and focus on maybe the waist to hip ratio if you want to have a way to determine and see it as health. Like, okay, the waist size is going down. That means I'm getting healthier. That's a different way to look at it, as long as you feel like you're not going to go into any downward spiral behaviors. So that's one way. The other way is to, waist to hip was what I had already said. That's the same thing. So basically, you can Google it, how to calculate your number. So just Google waist to hip ratio and how to calculate it. But it involves just measuring, and then you do a calculation. I can't remember it in my head exactly how it works. I should remember this from my fitness days. But that can be a helpful place to start, and then only do that like once a month, maybe, or once every couple months. This is not a daily thing. This is a way to say, okay, this is where I'm at. And then if you decide to move into the Master Your Energy program at the end, which I'm going to share more about, then you can do the program and then see where you're at a couple months down the road and use it as a measure, like a tracking measure, not as a self-worth measure, not as a worthiness measure, not to get into perfectionism and obsession about. Okay, so I just wanted to share that with you, that the BMI is outdated. It's much better to focus on the waist to hip ratio. The next thing we're going to talk about is dropping the good food, bad food mentality. So, of course, we know there are certain things that are not good for us, like Coke, like pop, right? That stuff is terrible. I never drink soda, ever. I don't remember the last time I had pop. I just don't drink it. My husband and I, if we ever have something like a soda, we have this stuff called Zevia, which is it's like a soda, but it's sweetened with stevia. And that to me is like a treat. My husband likes them a lot more than I do. I'm a water herbal tea kind of person, or maybe kombucha as a treat once in a while. I don't really drink much other than water. But focusing on the good food, bad food mentality is where we tend to get into that perfectionism. Okay, so we need to just get rid of that out of our consciousness. That can be your paradigm shift, that there's no good food, bad food. There's just these choices that we have. There's lots of choices. There's an abundance of choices. And you get to choose what you are going to deem as good for you. And you're going to do that based on how it makes you feel. Does it trigger symptoms? And I help you figure out all of that inside the program so that you're not trying to figure it out by just following someone else's plan, someone else's idea of what you should and shouldn't eat. Drop all of this long list of foods, and these are only okay. Well, maybe that's fair enough for the person that wrote the book, and that doesn't mean it's right for you. So how do you know what to avoid? How do you know what to listen to? What craze do you fall into? What's a fad diet? What's something that I can maintain? And I know that this is just going to be part of my lifestyle. That's what we want to move toward. Now, sure, there might be some things you need to do in the beginning that are, following more of a healing plan until you start feeling a bit better. But still, there's going to be some things, like I know the things that make me feel gross, that I wake up feeling more puffy, like dairy. I cannot have dairy. And I just know that. I don't see it as a bad food, but, because I give it to my children and make sure it's organic and raw cheese and things like that. And I love cheese. That's about the only thing I miss. And if I even have some for a day or two, I notice I'm more puffy and I don't feel as good at all. I get these symptoms coming up. So not that it's a bad food, but it's not good for me. So I want you to get to that place where you know what that is. And you don't need to follow some other guru's guide of these are the things you must not ever touch. Grains are bad. This is bad. This is bad. So we want to let go of that. We want to allow for indulgences. We want to be able to have things. Like last week was my husband's birthday, and one of the things I am avoiding is gluten right now, just to balance out a thyroid imbalance that I've recently discovered. And I don't think I react to gluten, to be honest, but I've removed it just because it's out of all the research I've done. It's the one thing that shows up over and over and over again as a possible trigger for thyroid issues. So I've just taken it out. I didn't eat a lot to begin with, but I've just made that switch. And I still allow for indulgences. I made a gluten-free, dairy-free chocolate cake for my husband's birthday, and I had cake, and we had dairy-free ice cream with it. And I just let go of where my mind wants to go with it of, oh, it's bad, oh, it's sugar, it's going to feed candida, it's going to throw off your gut imbalance, and it just goes and goes and goes. We get stressed out about it, then that's going to be what happens. I feel like I've gotten to a point, because I've done all these other strict things over the years, that I don't really care anymore. Like if I'm going to make the healthiest choice I can and still live my life, I'm going to do it on occasion. Now, do I eat cake every day? No. Do I eat cake every weekend? No. But I'm going to let myself have those times and then rebalance it out afterwards. Get back on the train. There isn't even a train to get back on, right? Even that mentality of get back on the train. I just said it, but it's not even how I operate. It's that I'll make sure that I'm just eating the healthful foods the rest of the time and allow myself to have the things I want. So we need to find healthier options for treats, for sure. We want to find healthier options for things that we love that don't make us feel bloated, tired, sluggish, and all of that, right? And when you feel into your body, you'll notice how certain foods make you feel. And this is like the best way to know. The best way to know. And inside of my Master Your Energy program, I have a handful of foods that I guide you to remove for 21 days during the reboot phase. This reboot is the easiest, most pleasurable experience you will ever find. And if you're listening to this audio, the podcast, or you're watching this video, then likely you are kind of where I was, where you're already pretty health conscious. Like you already kind of know the foods that you should eat and shouldn't eat based on how you feel. So it's not going to be really hard for you. Now, if you're drinking pop every day, smoking cigarettes, drinking alcohol every day, living off of processed foods and sugar and eating out all the time and fast food and all that, then yeah, this is going to be a lot harder for you. You're eating all the gluten and everything all the time. But if you're someone that's already been on this track, which you likely are because you found me and that's likely where you're at, and that's really who this is for, then this will be a cakewalk, because I think it's like 5 or 6 things that based on my 15 years of research, I've done all the reading for you, all the research, I've done all the interviewing of health doctors, functional medicine doctors, and I've boiled it down to these 5 or 6 tops things to remove. And then you can insert them back in gradually to see what they do to your body, how they feel. Then you'll know. You get to decide, is gluten good for me or not? Is dairy okay or not? How does alcohol make me feel for real when I've cleared it out of my system for 21 days? Oh, it makes me feel really sluggish and gross and depressed. Okay, that's really good information to know. You're not going to know that until you take them out. So I have these core things that I have you remove that are specific, and they're based on my research. They're not just me pulling stuff out of thin air. It's research from different medically based professionals, books, people that I follow, that I've read books from, and working with lots of naturopaths on my path, on my healing path. And so that's what I've done. I basically boiled everything down into this program so that you have everything you need and nothing that's unnecessary. We need to simplify. Can't really heal unless we start to simplify things, right? So the next piece we're going to talk about is no more restricting. So you get that you have whatever this weight is you want to lose. You're uncomfortable. Maybe it's a size, maybe it's a measurement or a number on the scale, or a certain type of clothes you want to feel comfortable in. So we get that. And you have probably heard about the calories in, calories out myth, that you need to burn more calories than you consume, and don't eat fat, and carbs are bad, and all this BS. It's bullshit, really it is. And so it's about the quality. Dr. Mark Hyman is one of my favorite functional medicine people, by the way. And he has coined and said this, that it's not about the calories, it's about the quality of the calories. It's not quantity, it's quality. And so we need to focus on more nutrition, more quality, and without being too extreme. So we need to let go of the restricting and thinking that it's about measuring and counting calories and limiting ourselves, things that we want to eat or things that maybe are fine for our body. We need to let go of the perfectionism and the extremes. That's really what it comes down to. And I have a lot of experience around this personally, having to let go of these extreme behaviors around food. So when we're extreme in anything, we're off balance, right? Balance means that we've kind of got a flow and an ebb going on. But when we're really extreme in one area, it starts to just weigh on the rest, right? And then we have this imbalance because there's nothing else here keeping it in balance as a visual, right? Like lifestyle, spiritual life, emotional work, working on your inner world, your relationships, exercise, the right kinds of exercise, and finding a way to balance that out. Purpose, passion, creativity, all these things that we oftentimes are paying no attention to at all. We're just hyper-focused on the diet. And a quote from Glennon Doyle Melton, she says that your body is not your masterpiece, your life is. And that really resonated with me when I read it a long time ago. And it's a way to shift that focus of, I'm here to live my best life, not to be a certain size or certain appearance, even though that might be something you want, right? I want to hold space for you in that this might be something you really want to do, and for your health you need to do, but it's about how you go about doing it that matters, right? So we are not restricting, we're letting go of perfectionism, and we're letting go of extremes. So when we undereat, this causes our body to go into stress mode. when you're not eating properly, when you're not eating balanced meals, when you're skipping meals, when you're restricting and not eating enough, when you're doing fasting, even if it's intermittent fasting, which is really all the rage right now, which if you have adrenal hormone issues, you should not be doing. And if you are doing that, it could be one of your triggers for getting adrenal hormonal issues. So fasting, you have to be really careful with. It's not for everybody. So we need to focus on nutrients and quality of calories, not number of calories. The next piece is we're going to chat about focusing on your emotional healing. So this is a big one. Obviously, it's a whole subject on its own, but you need to have a process for moving it through. You need to have a way to stay in touch with that, because if you're not, you're likely going to use food or maybe even alcohol or things like that to numb and suppress your emotions. And that's not going to help you if you're trying to get healthy and shed some weight, because alcohol is basically sugar. A way to look at it is every alcoholic drink you have, if it's a glass of wine, is like having another dessert. And it turns to sugar. And it turns to sugar in your body, just like drinking sugar water. So we need to be aware of that. Not to say you should never ever have that occasional drink, but being aware of what happens and being mindful of what happens within your body when you do that. But if you're using it as a crutch or as a way to self-medicate, that's something you will want to deal with if you're wanting to change your lifestyle. So we need to look at our needs on all levels, okay? We need to look at our thoughts, which is our psychology, and you've probably heard mindset, but psychology meaning is your thoughts, what's happening in your consciousness or your subconsciousness. But we are really dealing with what you're aware of, because if you have subconscious thoughts that are not necessarily bothering you and they're not creating issues in your life, we don't need to dig those up. We just need to look at what's present now. I'm not really of the belief we need to go digging around for hidden thoughts, but if there's a pattern in your life that you need to change, then there's likely a belief there that's driving the pattern, and then we do need to look at, okay, so what's underneath that? But I don't believe we need to go and do all this extreme stuff to unearth subconscious beliefs unless they're affecting the now, subconscious thoughts. So we need to look at the thoughts. We need to look at beliefs. And beliefs are just thoughts you keep thinking that your consciousness and your mind has attached to. It's a thought on repeat. That's what a belief is. Or it's something that you had planted within you as a child from your family of origin, something your parents believed, something that they kept telling you, or something you made up about life growing up that is a belief, but you haven't really challenged it. So it does require doing that inner work. It requires looking at your emotional material, getting in touch with how you feel, where you're giving your power away, where you're blaming, where you're in emotional reactivity all the time, blaming other people and blaming your world and your circumstances for how you feel. Because we can't change our circumstances until we change how we feel, by the way. It starts within. It's also about spiritual connection, having some kind of a spiritual life, whatever that looks like for you. It's focusing on self-love. And self-love is, the way I coin it, if somebody asks me, how do I start loving myself? How do I do this? It's a decision, number one. It's a decision to be open and willing. And number two, it is created through the decisions that you make every day about how you take care of yourself, how you set boundaries, the time you put aside for you, your self-care, your lifestyle, the rituals, the food you put in your body. All of this and the choices will align with self-love or self-abuse or self-dishonor, depending on what it is. So we can either choose the self-love route or not. And that's really what it is. The more we're choosing out of self-love, the more our self-love will increase. That's how, it's not something that you're just deemed like, oh, I love myself now. It's about looking in the mirror and not saying, if you notice you're saying something negative to yourself, is to flip it around somehow, or maybe take the mirrors out for a while or something, right? So you're not, hyper focused on that. or if you're noticing a negative thought come in about yourself, is to flip it, switch it, find a higher feeling thought in there. The other thing that we need to do is look at our relationships. So I don't know if you've heard of this saying before. It's been said by many different personal growth gurus, is that we become the sum of the 5 people we spend the most time with. So if you look at the 5 people in your life that you spend the most time with, ask yourself, are they feeding me? Are they draining me? Are they stressing me out? Are they a constant stress on my, on my thoughts, on my emotions, in my life? And to really take some time to look at that, write it all out, and just write out the 5 people that you spend the most time with, whoever they are, your spouse, family, children, people you work with, parents, friends. Who are they? Coworkers. And get really honest about what that is doing to you. Who are they, and are they lifting you up, or do they just feel like they're just dragging you down? Again, this is a choice, right? I'm not saying that we're putting the blame on other people, but the part that's on you is, where are you allowing this in your life? Who are you giving your time and energy to that maybe isn't aligned with where you say you want to go with your health? Like if you're around, this happened with a recent client of mine where she was really aware that her circle of friends were very fixated on the next diet. And she was too, before she came to work with me. And she shifted it very rapidly, by the way, and fired her nutritionist. Not because I told her to, but just because she felt like she was evolving to this place where she didn't need that anymore, that she already had all the info. She already knew how you're supposed to eat. She didn't need any more of that. And so partway through our work together, she just said, I had to let go of my nutritionist because I just can't do that anymore, right? She had her paradigm shift. She knew that she could not do that anymore. So then all of a sudden, the friends that were emailing her new diets to try, and when she get together with them, they're talking about their diets and they're talking about what they can't eat because of their diets. She realized, like, I cannot do this anymore. I can't even be around this. And so she had to start looking at that. And that might happen because when you start to rise up and change, when you're more into your growth and you're talking about positivity and growth, and you're taking courses and you're reading books and you have no tolerance for people who are just there to complain, there's going to be pushback. There's going to be people making fun. There's going to be people poking at you or challenging you or telling you what you believe is silly or ridiculous or whatever. It's going to happen. It does happen. But you still get to choose how you respond to that. I have someone in my life that close to me, a couple of people that have treated me in this way because I choose to focus on the positive and see the good. And I've had people saying negative things to me because that I believe those things, even though, because all the bad things that happen in the world, I should be focused on the reality of things, right? But we want to not focus on reality if we can help it. So yes, owning it and saying, hey, this is where I'm at, but I don't want to stay here. So I'm not focusing here. I'm focusing on where I want to go. And the only way to change here is to know where you want to go and start changing what you're doing day to day, moment to moment, those little micro choices, micro actions, things that you do that are different than what you've done before. That's how we create change. So I know this seems like, fairly deep we're talking about no more diets, but this is what it looks like. It looks like healing from the inside out. So my podcast is all about, because we're looking at the inner stuff that created the condition. The outward manifestation is your body, your physical appearance, who's in your life, what your work life is like, what your finances are like, what your relationships are like. That is all started within, because we basically, allow all of that in. So we can say there's this person over here and this circumstance and this debt and this whatever, but we have to take ownership and say, well, I took out the student loan and I allowed this person in my life, right? I've been spending time with that person. I'm in this job and I said yes to it. I probably could leave it. It's all a choice. So it's important to look at where your choices have led you, is to hear and to own it and say, okay, so here's where I'm at. We have a level of acceptance around that, and then we shift into, okay, so now what? Right? Now what am I going to do? Now what is the next step to take? And some of that can be hard because it feels like I don't know what the next step is to take. What do I do? I hear that maybe this all makes a ton of sense and I want to change this and change my life, but now where do I even start? So that's where the Master Your Energy program is so amazing, because I've created this to be a step-by-step program. You go into the portal, membership portal, where the course is housed, and you go into each module step by step. And we go into all of what is covered here around the food piece, the emotional eating piece, the stress eating, the holistic lifestyle, to shift what you're doing right now, to start shifting your energy. The 21-day reboot kickstarts your metabolism, it kickstarts your adrenals, it kickstarts your system, and your results from that will be, first of all, feeling better is the goal, and weight loss as the natural effect when your body starts to come back into balance. So this isn't about a promise for that, because my goal for you, or my intention at least, your goals are your goals, my intention with this program is that it will help you to have a direct path. It will lead you step by step to the essentials, and you'll start feeling better fast. The biggest thing that I hear from women that have gone through this is that their energy levels increase quite quickly. They start to notice an improvement over time, not months and months and months, but pretty quick, and feeling better because they now have a plan. They know the areas that they need to shift, and they're taking action on that. And they start feeling better from the inside. And that is all we really want. Because even though you might believe that your happiness lies in a certain size, it's not that you necessarily want. It's the feeling of what you think that it's going to bring you that you want. So how it is that you want to feel can be something you can choose now to say, I want to feel energized. So if you want to feel more energized, you can choose to take actions and put foods in your body that will lead to that feeling. You can say, well, this sugar-loaded whatever, is that going to help me feel energized? No, you'll probably end up crashing and feeling horrible. But maybe you feel like you don't have a lot of choice around that, or a lot of control. Maybe you have that emotional eating pattern that's deeply ingrained. Well, we go into that in the program. There is actual printable PDFs that you will use to reprogram your habits of emotional eating, stress eating, unconscious eating. And so there's everything you need, including the adrenal jumpstart in there, the 21-day adrenal jumpstart. So that's really the nutshell of it, of what is really required. And it's a journey. It's not a quick fix. It's not cookie cutter, because what you're going to pull from the program is going to be different than what someone else might pull. It's basically a toolbox of everything you need, and you can dive into which section appeals to you the most right now. You can dive right into the reboot phase, which is the nutritional, we were talking about, the exercise, the lifestyle, or you can do the inner work pieces first and then do the reboot. The reboot is something also that's designed as it can be a permanent lifestyle change, because it's that sustainable. It's not hard to follow, but it's powerful. If you can just make some tweaks and some shifts, they don't have to be big, but it's the smaller things that we change on a consistent level that creates transformation. It's not what you just do today, having a smoothie one day and then not having one the rest of the week, and having donuts or bagels instead, or something like that, right? It's making sure that you're having that smoothie every day, and the cumulative effect will create a change. And when we start doing this from multiple areas, lifestyle, emotions, thoughts, energy, all of these pieces, that's where you have this rapid transformation that draws you to the next level, moves you to the next level. And that would be my hope for you. So if you'd like some more information about Master Your Energy, click the button below this video and check it out. It's self-study, and you just take it at your own pace and join us inside the Facebook group. There's a Facebook group for this program. So if you have any questions, I'm in there every now and then. I pop in usually once a day, or I'll get the notification if you tag me or you are asking me a specific question, and you'll get your question answered in the group. How cool is that? So you take it at your own pace and implement it in your life and create that implementation plan. And you will see your life transform if you take the steps. You go into the modules, you do the work, you will see the change over time. So I hope this has been helpful and that you feel inspired to make some changes in one or more areas of your life, and that you've had a shift in perception of what this really takes and what's really going on, and you're ready to transform at a deeper level. And if you are, then the Master Your Energy program will definitely help get you there. If you're not in that place where you feel like you want to invest and take that next step, then just take some of what we've talked about here today and implement it. Take some action, even in just one thing you've heard today, and start moving in a new direction. That's all I have for you. This is Leanne Oaten, and thank you so much for listening.